We're going to discuss pricing per hour as a freelancer. Now, I'm going to do further videos on different pricing models for freelancers, but if you're starting out, it is likely that you're going to be selling your time for money. So there's going to be an exchange for the amount of hours that you work for your client. And that's understandable. It's a good process to go through to understand the different pricing models, the pros and cons as a freelancer. And starting out, as I say, it's likely to be one of the main ways you'll get going. So when you're pricing per hour as a freelancer, there's a few things you can do to, first of all, come up with your hourly rate. The first thing is to compare your previous career, including your background, experience, what salary you were getting, bearing in mind there was benefits with pensions and holidays, sick pay, etc., and try and work back and calculate what would your equivalent or a slightly increased, given the transition from employment to self-employment, hourly rate that would be. So that gives you a bit of a ballpark, a proxy, if you like. You can then, of course, research the market. What are competitors in your space charging? And again, if you know any people in your network who maybe employ or hire freelancers, you can speak to them about the sort of rates they start to pay. And you can start to build up a general idea of where you fit. And of course, you've got to keep in mind what you want to be charging, right? You may have gone freelance for a variety of reasons, and one of those may be that you want to earn more money. So you need to take that into account, because you don't want to get into the sort of chase of trying to get more money, but not having a high enough hourly rate that you end up working so many more hours than you were when you were employed, and that goes against the whole reason why you started. So once you've done all of that, you can come up with your ideal rate. Now, what you need to ensure that you do, particularly if you're just starting out, maybe if you are even a little bit nervous, and desperate's a strong word, but that you really need to get some work to get going as an early stage freelancer, make sure you stick to your ideal hourly rate when you're quoting for projects. That's absolutely crucial, because you can negotiate down, but you can never negotiate up, or it's very difficult to do that, and you have to wait a certain period of time when you've proven your credibility, etc., etc. So be strong with that opening rate. Now, if you've got the credibility and the experience and the skills that the client needs, very rarely will you get into the weeds of negotiation. 8 times out of 10, people will just accept your original rate. They'll go ahead, maybe test you on an initial project, and if that's successful, roll on. So that's an ideal world. So if you go in, and I made this mistake when I started out, underpricing myself significantly, you then realize, oh, I won that project really easily, great. And then you think back and think, actually, they're getting a significant more value than they're actually paying for here. So it's not really a win-win, which is what you always want to try to achieve with your client relationships. So ensure that you stick to that high rate. For those ones who do negotiate, which can happen, as I say, maybe 20% of the time approximately in my experience, sometimes there is a good reason to negotiate. And that could be they're offering you a significant amount of work. There's opportunity for further projects with their organization or the business that they're running, et cetera, which are valid, and you can have discussions around them. However, where they immediately go into a negotiation about pricing, that's one of the red flags of a client you probably should avoid, even if you are getting into that desperation stage of really wanting to pick up some new business, or you feel like you're going to have a bit of a quiet period and you want to get some new work. So actually, it's quite a good vetting procedure to start at your ideal hourly pricing rate, because the ones that really try and squeeze you, actually, they'll be a nightmare in terms of all the other elements, maybe being a late payer, maybe constantly wanting your time and chasing things up and being critical, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not just a good way of making sure you get paid what you're worth, but also that you're working with the higher quality clients. So identify what your ideal hourly rate is, and be really strong and stick to that during the negotiations or when you quote for projects. Best of luck.